Alright guys, this is the feature preview for Iconizer. To get started, it's pretty simple. You're just going to go to Window, and you're going to go to Iconizer. That's going to open up the GUI here. It does its little auto setup. And then we'll get started with the easiest to use of the bunch. And that's going to be the character prefab. And what this does is it's going to look through your object or your character prefab, and it's going to find all these skinned meshes, like you can see, are contained within the object here. And it's going to print out an icon with the image of each specific skin mesh over top of your background that you choose. So to use this, it's pretty straightforward. You're just going to kind of grab your object or your prefab or your character model, and you're going to drop it right into that slot there. You're going to set your background. You can do multiple backgrounds, so you'll get basically the same image 3 times as an icon if you wanted different variants of each icon. So to keep it simple, we'll just do 2, but you can do more if you like. Keep in mind, the more you do, the more CPU heavy that'll be, so it might take longer to batch process that in the end here. The next thing we're going to kind of go over here is how to adjust and tweak. So in the live preview or the final icon preview, you can drag your mouse and rotate. So left click and drag is going to rotate, whichever way you'd like to. If you right click and drag, you could play with the offset. And then if you zoom in and out with your mouse wheel, and then that's pretty much how this functions. So I'm going to set this back to 0, 0, 0, but you can kind of fine tune it here also. And you can click on this variable, and whatever you want to do is, I find it easier to offset with the numbers rather than the dragging it in the window. So that said, another thing to keep in mind is your icons are not going to be, your character model. We just kind of leave that in there until I find a better solution as a reference object to get an idea of how your icons are going to be placed within or your objects are going to be placed within the background. So you can do other things. You can change the resolution for your image output. You can change it to a JPG, or I'm sorry, JPG. We're just going to leave it on PNG. That's fine enough for me, 512 by 512. You can add post-processing, but to keep it simple, I'm just going to leave it at that. And the last thing I'll mention is you can kind of change your lighting. So you can see that's all reflected live in there. So tethered lighting keeps the camera attached to the lighting. So as you rotate the camera, the lighting stays with it. If you wanted to leave your lighting in a static location, maybe you like the reflections the way your object hit from a certain angle, you would uncheck tethered lighting, and then you could set your lighting XYZs right here. But moving forward, we're going to go ahead and hit generate, and you will see that I'll end up with a new folder in my Iconizer, which should have 2 variants of all the icons for every mesh within that object. This usually takes about a minute, usually less actually, but depending on everybody's specific hardware. All right, now that that's done, I should have a nice little folder of all the icons that we just made. Keep in mind your exclusions are case sensitive. I didn't really pay attention to that here, so I created some icons for objects I really didn't need to. No big deal, I can easily delete those. But as you can see, we have a bunch of pretty decent looking icons for all of the objects that we just went through. And they also reflect the positioning that we placed the camera in. So we rotated the objects a little bit, so now our icons appear on that angle within there. So if we look through our icons, we're going to find some objects that don't look pretty, right? Because it takes multiple, for example, the skirt here, right? These 2 parts should be together. So the purpose of this is we're creating icons that actually reflect the items in the game. So that's why I have another feature called multi-layer icons. So we're going to go ahead and just clean up the scene, reset it, and then we're going to go to multi-layer icons, and we can go through that now. So the way multi-layer icons works is I just kind of explained the purpose. Now we're going to do the exact piece that we just saw. So there's two objects that make up one icon in that particular item, right? So we're just going to set two, and then we're going to open up our prefab. We're going to go into the meshes, and then I actually have them contained in the one object here, but here they are here. So I'm just going to drag the lower into object one, the overlay into object two. And as you can see now, we have the actual object as it's represented in the game in one single image for the icon. And just like everything else, we can add multiple backgrounds and then drag, drop, and same rules apply, zoom and all that fun stuff, positioning. So let's bring that down a little bit. I like it more right there. Give it a little bit of a rotate. I don't want to be a perfectionist right now, but you get the point. And then we can play with the lighting. And then same thing, post-processing. You could select your post-processor if you'd like to. We're not going to use that. There's no need for this. And then what I'm going to do is just generate. And just like before, now I have the icon that represents one item. Next, we're going to go back to the other feature that we just did, character prefab. I'm just going to reset everything. It's kind of good practice to do that afterwards. And then, so we have a clean workspace for presentation. I'm going to go ahead and delete all these wonderful icons we just made. So when we went through the mass production through the batch and we created all the icons, like some of them look great, but things like boots and gloves didn't really look that great under the same settings, right? So while that was great for mass production, there's a couple things that we would have done differently had we arranged them how we like. So we're going to go ahead and do the character prefab, this time the same feature. And then instead, we're going to use one at a time. This kind of works the same way, except now we are going to manually change the camera however we like for each individual object, and we could cycle through that until we're completely done. And then I am just going to do one background for this for the demonstration purposes. All right, so we're pretty well set up for this now. All I got to do is hit generate icons, and then it's going to start cycling through the list. We don't want ears, so we're not even going to bother. We don't want a head, we're not even going to bother. Skip, skip, skip. All right, before I skip again, there's something I forgot to mention, which kind of stopped me for a second there to check. In the one at a time feature, it the objects in the prefab have to actually be active. So that's a way of isolating things that we don't want to have to manually click through. So the way we're going to do that is just double click your object, and then you may or may not know this, but a way to mass activate the objects is just click at the top, scroll down to the bottom or wherever you want, or control click each individual item you want, and then hold shift, click, you're going to highlight them all, and then over here in the inspector, you're just going to check the little box and it's going to turn all those on. So now that that's taken care of, we're going to move back into what we were doing here. And then you'll see if I press skip, we're going to get to the objects we want. So this is what I was talking about specifically when some objects don't look great with just a generic rotation, right? So boots we might want to display a little better. In the scenario you're going to see here, you're going to find that like my boots and gloves don't look great from the angle that we just took shots of. So then when I find one that I like, I get the setting that I like, I'm just going to go ahead and generate. And then gloves again, as you can see, like that would let that kind of be like a crappy icon like that. So I want to find a way to display these a little bit better. You know, it's still not perfect. I'm not going to be a perfectionist. Same rules. I can adjust the lighting intensity, kind of get it how I like it, and play with the offsets a little bit. But again, just to be brief, I'm going to go ahead and generate that as is. What we're doing is essentially going through that entire list of objects, and we're just individually lining up the icon how we like. And then this does work like the other one. We could also have multiple backgrounds where this is doing the same thing. We won't do this because this is a two-piece icon. That's for multi-layer, so we'll just go ahead and skip that. Skip that. Go to zoom, and then generate. Now I'm gonna rapid skip through the end of this now. It'll tell us when we're done. And then there's a little bit of a thing with Unity. Sometimes it doesn't always. When I get to the end of this, it won't always auto refresh the folder so we can see the objects. But I'll tell you that trick in a little second here. It's literally just clicking outside of the Unity window and clicking back in, and then your folder will update showing all the objects. So let's see if it actually does it here, because sometimes it works. Yeah, those icons were actually generated. The folder appears empty. All I'm really doing now is literally clicking outside of Unity for a moment and then back inside, and they appeared. And then, yeah, I mean, that's that. We have our icons with the adjustments and placement that we set them at. And I didn't do a great job, but you get the feel. Moving forward to our next feature. This is pretty straightforward. I don't even think I need to do a full preview for this. So this is where we could set folders, and then we would just type in the paths. So if I were to do backgrounds, and then separate it by a comma, and let's what's another folder, content. It would go through those folders when I press generate, and very similar. It's just going to go through every single object that exists in those two folders that I listed there, and it's going to make an icon. I'm not going to go do that because there's no need to generate, 600 icons right now. So that's a wrap for now. A couple things I guess I will mention before I go. Occasionally, you're going to notice you'll get an error, and I'll tell you exactly what it's caused. There's nothing wrong with the script. What happens is if you do not clean up the scene and you just close this, well, you haven't released the texture from the camera yet. All you got to do is just delete that, clear it. It's not coming back, it's gone. So, other than that, I mean, everything works pretty smoothly. I do have another feature planned for the future. I'll give you a little preview of what that is. Um, and that is your armor piece generator. This works the same way. And go to assets, put my character model in there, and then I can attach any script. For in my case, I would put my Iconizer script one there, so it works with my inventory. But I mean, that's it. I'm just gonna set the scale to 0.55. And what this is actually going to do is it's going to go through and it's going to make these actual physical items for me so I could drop them in the game. So it's going to copy the transform, the skin mesh render, and apply the material. So if I just go ahead and hit generate armor pieces, it's going to create that folder for me in a second here. And now if you look in Iconizer, I actually have 3D skinned items that I can drop and place in the world. There we are. And that would be how we do it. And if you attach the script, that would be attached, and then you now have your actual, you've itemized your entire inventory of character armor. And that's a wrap for Iconizer, guys. I hope you enjoyed the product. Good luck. Feel free to email anything you need. I'm willing to help. Thanks.